Good evening. Welcome into the Illini Inquirer podcast. Jeremy Werner here back at Illinois, but Derek Piper was at the game of the season so far as Illinois, the number 20 ranked Illini, might be moving up this week, especially if anything happens on Saturday that goes in their favor. But a huge win, 98-89 over Florida Atlantic. Marcus Domask, legendary performance, 33 points, including 25 in the second half. Oh, and Terrence Shannon got 33, made a bunch of free throws late, but he was dominant as well. He scores 33 points. I don't know the last time two players scored 30 points in a big-time game like this. We'll have to rely on Derek Burson for that one. But Derek Piper, you were at Madison Square Garden, the Mecca, and for a second straight year, Illinois walks out of there with a monster win. Set the scene. What was that like, man?
I'm still buzzing, man. I've been doing this a while. That was one of the most fun games I've ever covered. So just the back and forth nature, knowing FAU, respecting that opponent team that's obviously gone to the Final Four and bring almost everybody back. And the trading of punches down the stretch. It felt like Illinois should be pulling away, but then FAU makes a play and you look up at the scoreboard and it's only a 4-point game. So it was a heck of a lot of fun, a lot of points. I wondered if Illinois was going to have the firepower, if it was going to be an up and down type of ball game, which FAU I think would have wanted to play if they had the ability to score with them. And ultimately, with Marcus being that aggressive and that efficient, going to the mid post, hitting jump shots. He was on an epic heater. At one point, kind of does the Jordan shrug towards the bench. He was feeling it. Terrence downhill was special. We know that, but he's needed a running mate like this offensively. And we talked about it a week or so ago, like who's going to be the number 2 scorer. And it should be Marcus. It should be Marcus. And then beyond that, you get some guys chipping in here and there. Coleman hits a big 3 late. A guy.
We'll get Derek Piper back here in the Madison Square Garden. We'll get him back. But Marcus Domask, what was amazing with that was 3 points against Southern, 7 against Valpo, 2 of 9 against Valpo, 1 of 3 against Southern. Derek, I'll bring you back in here. That's what's amazing about this is Rutgers. He had 15 points, and it was like, oh, all right, this guy's back. You saw and you wrote about it, some assertiveness there. Marquette had 18 points against Kansas. He was really aggressive. But, boy, like this looked like a go-to guy. This looked like a guy who's all Missouri Valley now feels like he belongs. At this marquee stage in that mecca of a building, to see that was like, oh, this guy is feeling it now.
Yeah, and you always wonder how it's going to translate. You've got examples of guys, like Tyler Kolix from George Mason and Marquise Noel last year, Arkansas State, on another line. And then, of course, we've seen some others that put up a bunch of points at a lower level and it didn't click. Mark Allstork was an example that comes to mind for Illinois, that puts up 19 a game at Wright State, and he's just really not that dude in Champaign. So it helps that Terrence is drawing a lot of the primary attention, and that gives Marcus an ability to operate off of that. But he's super smooth. He's got an ability to just get you in the mid post and not feel like he's sped up at all. Pretty nice looking jump shot. He said, based on my expectations, I haven't been shooting it all that well, so I got more to go in that sense. But it just feels like he's now understanding where his spots are, what this team is asking out of him. I think he's juiced up, knowing how much they're pushing him to just give us more, show us all that you got. We don't need you to be tentative and walk around here like, hey, you're new to this team and you're just a piece. Like, you're supposed to be a dude on this team. And he obviously looked like one tonight.
Yeah. Every time FAU made a run, Domask seemed to have an answer, right? That FAU team is really good. Like when Vlad Golden's on the court, you can see why they're so good. John L. Davis is a really good guy. Elijah Martin did not have a great game tonight. I think it had something to do with that. But FAU went on a 6-0 run. Domask responded with a 3. FAU went on a 5-0 run, had a jumper. Elijah Martin goes on and 1, and Domask responds with another jumper. And I kept thinking the same thing with John Paddock when he had those games. I'm like, the coach has got to be thinking, glad I called that guy. We got to give a lot of credit. Some people were skeptical when Marcus Domask was the first addition for them, the first guy they targeted, and it ended up being the biggest addition they made this offseason. And we'll talk about Guerrier and Harmon making a big impact in this game. But Domask was a great call by Brad Underwood to go after that guy. Of course, we got a whole season ahead of us, but he fits what they needed and really complements, as you said, Terrence Shannon, who's just playing at a ridiculous level.
No doubt. Yeah, he was in the portal for a week, and then Illinois really made an all-out push. We're able to get him on campus, and he hadn't visited anywhere else, and they made sure he didn't take any other visits after that. And I know Shrews really wanted him at Notre Dame, and there were a couple other schools involved, like
Wisconsin with him right now? Wisconsin.
Yeah. Wisconsin was a place that was highly speculated for him. Obviously, that's his in-state program and whatnot, and obviously you could see him fitting there with how skilled he is and just being close to home. But Brad Underwood likened him to a Thomas Walkup. He saw Thomas Walkup in him. They're not, maybe perfect comps, but, bigger guard/forwards that can be multi-positional, like Brad said tonight. They can play the power forward all the way up to bringing the ball up, which we've seen more and more out of Marcus as well. So it was a great fit. Like you said, a great call. And he's different than Matthew Meyer. And he not to rag all on Matt, but Marcus seems a little bit more just, I don't know, selfless, team basketball and whatnot. And it's been a great marriage so far. And obviously I think you're going forward, but again, like 1,600-point scorer, but the Valley's a good league, but you never know. Like, at least from Matt's standpoint, you look and saw that he hadn't been an alpha, he hadn't been a top scorer. He played in the Big 12. You just maybe never know when you make that jump, what that's going to look like. But you do give credit to the Valley having some quality basketball and Marcus doing what he did. And I mean, he's a really, really good player. We've seen that from early on, and now he obviously just took that up to another notch.
Yeah, on your Meyer point, like Meyer was a reason they made the NCAA tournament. He's still a good addition, but he was just a street guy. Like, it was like, you got to let him cook, and sometimes he's going to help you, sometimes he's not. Sometimes he's not going to help the team, and probably will actively hurt the team. That's not the case with Domask. Like, Domask is steady. Some nights he'll get this. Some nights he'll get 8 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds. But whatever's got to happen to help the team. And that's what I'm liking about this team, Derek. Just to go big picture here, this is a really great start to a really tough slate in December to dispose of a Rutgers team that I don't think is going to be great. I think they might struggle to make the NCAA tournament, might be an NIT team, but to go in their place and demolish them is really encouraging. And then to beat and get your quad one, and this is going to be, did you tweet this, a quad 1A win? Something like somebody tweeted that earlier tonight. This is going to be a marquee win. This really stands out, neutral site. This feels like a Sweet 16 type of game or Elite 8 kind of game. This is going to stand out in the resume, and now you get a chance to do it again at Tennessee. But this team's starting to gel. This team's starting to figure out their roles, Derek, and I think all these guys pretty much accept their role. Like, Terrence is an alpha now. Like, he is assertive. He takes over, and I think he set the tone talking with you guys. I'm not going to the East Coast for a vacation or whatever it was. He was going to win games. He got 2 wins, and he's a huge part of that. Domask stepping up into that secondary score. I think Coleman Hawkins, you've seen the impact of him. I want to get into that here in a little bit. Then Quincy Guerrier, like, he knows he's a role player, and he seems to be enjoying the heck out of it. Justin Harmon is really settling in as a role player. Luke Goody coming off the bench. We're getting to Dane and some other guys, but that core, that big group, really seems to be connected and settled into their roles in December, which is really important.
Yeah, I think it's fitting well as it stands right now, and they can hang their hat on their defense. They understand that they're going to follow Terrence's lead offensively, and now that Marcus has stepped up, that really gives that number 2 that I think a lot of good teams have is you can have 2 really established guys and then just contributions for people to chip in around them. I thought Justin Harmon tonight was huge to, make those corner threes, and another guy that's played a lot of basketball games but not maybe with this big of magnitude or this big of a spotlight on it. And he was ready for the moment. He was able to come in there and make some big plays. And Quincy, like you said, I just feel like I said it on the last pod. I feel like these guys are just low maintenance type of transfers that don't and put a lot of, at least in terms of what we can tell on the outside, a lot of, individual investment of what their stat line should look like or how they're feeling about their shot load or whatnot. They're just contributing to winning, and they all want to win. So that's really good and healthy for the culture, obviously. And Coleman, I think if you can continue to get him back, and I asked him, after the game, how much did you even get to shoot when you were out with the knee? And he's like, I wasn't on the court at all. So for him to step up and make that big of a three, I mean, that's what a senior does. And I still think that there's some plays that obviously are frustrating with Coleman offensively, but defensively he does still give you a lot what you like, and 3 steals, and to knock down that three was a huge moment in that game. So I like what I'm seeing out of this team. You got to be thrilled to get this win. And it does. I mean, it feels like if you have any contact, you just dropped in, parachuted in today and said, there's 4 teams in the house. It's Illinois, FAU, North Carolina, and UConn. I mean, you could convince yourself this is a regional. Like this is a Sweet 16, and the winners play each other in the Elite 8. Like that's what this is kind of simulating in Illinois, to face a team that has been in the Final Four and beat them when it was not like FAU played poorly. They played pretty well, and you still beat them. So I think that says a lot about Illinois, obviously.
Derek, last year, this time, we're saying the same thing, right?
Yeah,
about Texas. So I want to ask you, what do you feel? Is this different than the feeling of Texas after you'd beaten UCLA? How is it different? Is it different than the feeling last year after winning at Madison Square Garden? Because we were sitting there going, that team can win the Big Ten if they continue to play like this. I think this team right now, if they continue to play like this, could win the Big Ten. But we saw last year that didn't happen. Do you have more confidence this team can continue this?
I do. I do have more confidence. That's a great point, a great reference point, because at this point last season, we were saying, man, this team could be a Final Four contender when you've beaten UCLA and Texas and riding high like that. I mean, why wouldn't you? And then things fell apart. So I think for this squad, there are definitely some things they still need to work on. They still have some areas, although they shot the free throw pretty well tonight, 18 for 20. That's one of the things I wondered if you got in crunch time when they stepped to the line and missed free throws. Turnovers got to be better on the whole, but I think just to kind of go back to what we were talking about, I feel like these pieces fit a little bit better. You do wonder about the point guard, but I think as of right now, they've been able to navigate that as best as possible. And you're talking about older dudes. You're talking about not talking about needed Sky Clark or Jaden Epps to give you 30 minutes in a game. You're not worried about even RJ Melendez last year was somebody that played rather sparingly as a freshman, and you needed him to be a big breakout sophomore. We're talking about guys that have been in college basketball for a long time, with Domask and Guerrier and Harmon, obviously same with Shannon and Hawkins. And so that makes it feel a little different for me too. And we'll see what Saturday looks like against Tennessee. But I do like what I'm seeing from this squad. And I mean, the fact they've already gone to battle with Kansas, Marquette, and FAU, I think there's a little bit of a bigger sample size in that sense. And also, the Texas game was a big comeback. The UCLA game was a big comeback. Illinois was, in this game the entire time, and it didn't feel as, one stretch determined, 1 5-minute stretch was the reason they won. They were, very competitive, and I think they led for 30-plus minutes against Kansas. Tonight they were right there. This was a punch-for-punch type of game, and not one where it's like, oh, they're down big, and then they come back, and is that repeatable?
The other thing about this, Derek, we didn't mention these guys. Like, Ty Rodgers was on the court during the second half, defending, had 3 assists in the second half, a couple rebounds. That guy knows his role. Luke Goody only played 20. He played 23 minutes tonight, but not complaining about not getting shots up. That's another thing I kind of like about this team right now. But I do want to mention Coleman Hawkins. There are, again, some moments you don't like, passing up some open shots to take tougher shots. One turnover you didn't like. The guy had 3 steals, +8 when he's on the court, and he came up huge in the final moments. Getting that three-pointer, shooting it confidently after a great take to Domask, pass out, and then a huge contest on Golden. And Golden should probably make that shot, but Hawkins helped, contest that one. And they're just so much better when Coleman Hawkins is on the court, both defensively and I think offensively at times, because I just think Dane Danger is really struggling right now. He's dribbling too much, but defensively is where I'm a little bit more concerned. You don't have the same defense when Coleman Hawkins is on the court. So I want to give him kudos. I thought there were moments tonight where I'm like, is Coleman going to get too frustrated and take himself out of this game? He was huge in the final 4-3 minutes.
Yeah, he was a difference maker down the stretch, like you said. I mean, being able to swat the ball out of Golden's hands for a steal and make that three. And yeah, I mean, the area that he can cover defensively versus what happens when Dane's kind of playing that drop. And sometimes it feels like Dane's kind of caught in no man's land or just doesn't have the range of motion that Coleman has as far as, the versatility to show and then recover and whatnot. And FAU, I mean, Golden was having his way inside. And really, I think kind of a side note is I give credit to Illinois for attacking downhill as much as they did. Like for them not to shoot – I mean, they shoot 23s, but –
a lot of discipline tonight, Derek. Like it was working. At one point, I tweeted out they were shooting like 72% from two, and they kept going to it. Like that was a lot of discipline. We've seen that the last couple of games. Seems like Brad Underwood got through to his guys of don't settle for threes. They're such a big physical team, Derek. That like even Guerrier early in the game, just going over a 6'4" guy. Domask kept going at it. Like you're so much bigger and physical than these guys. Brad Underwood's got his booty ball. Like with Domask, Ty Rodgers can do it. Guerrier, Shannon can do it. Like he got his booty ball guys.
Yeah. Domask put a foul or two on Golden. I know that Harmon had one that he gave him his second foul there in the first half by just going downhill. And Coleman fought him for a rebound, which got him Golden his fourth. And he scored 23 points in 18 minutes. Like if Illinois doesn't put that type of pressure on him in the paint and you let that guy score, or you let that guy play 30 minutes, what kind of stat line is he going to end up with? Because, he's got 3 inches on Coleman and he could do whatever he wanted there with kind of his back to the basket. But, I mean. You're
going to see that against Purdue. That's why you're going to be so good everywhere else, right?
Of course. And I think that in that sense, you'll see more doubling of the post. Now, FAU made it tough. Like, there was one stretch where Golden had scored twice and then they go to double him and it leads to a Davis open three. I mean, that's why a team like that is so dangerous. And obviously Purdue's they're shooting it pretty well as a team too. But Coleman is so important to this team still. Like I know he's very frustrating at times for some people, but he's very valuable defensively. And then that pick and pop ability, and that's why I love the shot that he took because it was in rhythm. There was no pump fake. There was no step back. There was no hesitation. Like it was just a smooth shot that I think he can make at a decent rate. I don't think he's going to be maybe a knockdown, dead-eye shooter, but
you got to make people respect you. And if you can do that and pull a guy like Golden out, that opens things for Shannon, Domask, Guerrier. All those guys can dribble drive it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can almost there are a lot that you can play off of with that. You can almost like high-low it with, Coleman on the perimeter and maybe mid-post to Mask, or like you said, pull it out and open those driving lanes for Shannon. And Justin can drive it, and Ty is capable as well to do that. So I just think he unlocks so much if he's playing well. And even though, he's obviously had the knee and hasn't had his best start, there's still a lot of time for him to get to that point. And it would mean a lot for Illinois if he could. There's another thing that he can unlock for this squad.
Shout out to Fox Third for a $10 super chat here. Hawkins is phenomenal on D, and I know he helps pull bigs out of the lane. Correct. But if he's going to shoot, please, for the love of the Illini, shoot from the paint. He's so much more athletic at the rim. I like Hawkins shooting threes, Derek, as long as they're in rhythm and he's not doing the pull-up, like step back. I just don't like him passing up good shots to take harder shots. And that happens a little too often. I think he's just got to get into more of a rhythm. But, boy, those ones late and making free throws. And let's shout out Illinois making free throws tonight. 18 of 20, 15 of 17 in the second half. And at one point they made 8 straight before Shannon missed one really, really late in that game. So they made free throws, but the good part was Shannon was the one taking a lot of them. But Hawkins makes 2 clutch ones. Harmon makes 2. Guerrier makes 2. So kudos to those guys for hitting those shots in big moments.
Yeah, you had the right guy taking the bulk of those with Shannon and obviously being able to step up and make them. I do agree that I like Coleman in rhythm, no other maybe secondary thought of a pump fake type of three. Now, I do think maybe you could show him the highlight and remind him you dunked on Trace Jackson Davis last year. Like, do you remember that? Like,
can I interrupt you? What makes you more nervous, when Coleman pump fakes or when Dane takes a dribble?
Ooh, yeah, that's Dane off the bounces.
I think it's the last. I don't.
It's messy.
Yeah. Win, but those are the two things I get most nervous about when they happen for Illinois.
I agree. It's hard to choose one. Both usually get the respective guy in trouble for sure.
Yeah. All right, Derek. It's amazing we've gone this far. Terrence Shannon is just on another. He's gotten so much better. He does not belong in college basketball. Like, that guy should be on an NBA team right now. And I had Rob Douster. Those guys watched Florida Atlantic, and they were so jacked about this. He said, if Terrence Shannon's the best player in the court, Illinois can win. Well, he might have been the second best player on the court, but Illinois also had Domask, who was the top two. I mean, 33 points on 14 shots, made a bunch of free throws late in this game. But how do you guard him right now when he's making threes at a 40+% clip at a very high rate? Like, he's shooting 5 a game basically, and then just no one can contain him off the dribble. Like he has been so efficient offensively. I just don't know how you guard him right now.
He definitely belongs in this building, playing at the Garden at the next level, really. I mean, to see the lane, like, and just to watch some of the other fans, like whether you're FAU fan, North Carolina fan, UConn, to like their eyes perk up and be like, whoa, I mean, this dude is maybe a different kind of explosive, and be able to get end to end and to see a gap and just all of a sudden he's on you or past you. Like he's obviously big time. And I think Illinois should send a holiday gift down to Orlando for the Orlando Magic not giving him that early second round promise that he was looking for.
Gosh, he would be good on that team.
He would. Yeah. I forget what they ended up doing with that pick. Did they trade that pick? I don't remember. But yeah, someone that could have been in that range. And he didn't have the type of guarantee that he was looking for. And he's back in college and he looks like as good of a, obviously, big guard, wing, whatever you want to call him, in college basketball. All-American type performance so far, a month and some change into this season. And he continues this. I mean, he's going to be in the mix for a lot of those postseason accolades, and Illinois is going to be a force to be reckoned with because he's a dude. Yeah,
kudos to him. He got so much better. And we did see that mid-range game tonight.
Yeah.
You do that too? Good grief. Andre Jackson was drafted in that slot, but it was traded to Milwaukee. So Orlando handed that pick to Milwaukee. I think Shannon might have been her better pick, but hey, no problem. Hey, we got about 750 people in this live YouTube. Shout out to all of you. Thank you for joining us. Hit the like button if you're not here. If you haven't already, subscribe to us. We really appreciate that. You can send in your super chats. But Derek, let's get to some of these questions before we let you go. Travis just says, Domask booty ball, a thing of beauty. Killed me watching Penn State and Jalen Pickett. Went 32 in the draft, doing it to us last year, but it's amazing when it's on your team. What does that allow for that offense?
Well, it's like Brad said, when he can find it organically, there are going to be times where they're just going to dial it up, given a matchup that he has. But I mean, he comes down the court at one point, and he was against Greenlee, the point guard off the bench, and that just automatically turned him into a mid-post ISO. And when he's got the size, which pretty much anybody that he saw on him tonight, he was going to have that, being 6'6", and FAU with their 4-guard lineups didn't really go above 6'3", 6'4" at those other spots. So he's got the size advantage. He can shoot over anybody. He's just really composed in that 10 to 15 feet range with his back to the basket. His turnaround jumper is really, really smooth. And he sees the floor well. I think if you try to double him out of that, he can pass out of it. And it's just a very effective spot where he played that a lot at SIU, essentially being a 4-man. And, he's used to seeing a bunch of doubles. So now that when he gets one-on-ones with a guy that he's a little bit bigger than, I mean, he's feasting on that. It's when he's now, I liked against Rutgers, him taking his game off the bounce a little bit more, being willing to go to the rim, being willing to step into a pull-up jump shot, a pull-up two in the mid-range that's open, and obviously shooting the three as well. where it was all working for him tonight. But the mid post is one of those. It's the ability to exploit matchups, and that was really the thing that Penn State feasted on, and Illinois doing it now with Marcus and some of the actions they're running to Shannon to get him in some screening. So I think it's great. I think it's got a lot of potential for Illinois going forward.
Scotty asks, is Domask the point guard? Seriously? Well, I think him, Shannon, and Rogers are basically the point guard. At times, Hawkins can run the offense, but it's kind of by committee. But I do want to give kudos to the staff, Derek. Two of the toughest opponents you've played so far this year, two of the best offensive performances.
Yeah, it's true. Marcus brought the ball up a lot, I think, especially in the second half. And, he finishes with 3 assists. and Ty had 3 and Terrence had 2. I think there's been a lot of stretches where, Terrence has been acting as a point guard in terms of the ability of him to play in a lot of ball screens and make decisions. And I thought he's, for the most part, done a pretty good job of that. Ty's going to guard point guards for the most part. Tonight he was on.
He's a bear for those guys. Like
he is.
Sometimes there can be a little bit too much fouling. Harmon did it tonight, but I've been so high on this defense, Derek, and it wasn't that great tonight. But I thought Florida Atlantic had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, they did.
But you can just see at the beginning of that game, like what their size and physicality does to teams with talented guards. Like Michigan State, they're going to have issues with Illinois.
Right. No, and I mean, look at the night Elijah Martin had. I think that says a lot about Terrence. This is a guy that had been on a really nice heater of late. I think points a game in his last 5. And him and Davis went Bombay in that A&M game. And when they have both of those guys working, especially with Golden 2, you can imagine how tough they are. So Terrence not letting Elijah get going. And just in general, I mean, you saw FAU when they got around the basket. I think at one point their shots at the rim stat, I can't remember off the top of my head, it was like 5 for 14 or something like that. They were struggling around the basket, and they were traveling too. Like you could see them hesitant and trying to like pump fake and then make moves, and that size did bother them for sure. Now the game opened up very late in the first into the second half, and FAU was scoring seemingly at will, but then Illinois kept punching them, and I think it does say a lot about FAU's offense. I'm sure Brad will go back in the film and be able to point some things out of things they need to clean up. And I don't think it was flawless defensively by any means, but I think it's good to be able to win different styles of games and to win a slugfest, which you may have to do on Saturday against Tennessee, or when the offense is really fluid and going. But don't get me wrong, I enjoyed watching that kind of game.
That was fun. Yeah.
High scoring, gets your shots off kind of game. That was fun.
I think we'll see enough in the 60s and maybe 50s in the Big Ten here coming up. Jake asks, Illinois shooting 40% over 3 the last 3 and looking better from free throw tonight. Are you shooting concerns assuaged? Good word there, Jake.
That's a great word.
I think the most important thing, Derek, they're taking fewer of them and they're taking better of them.
Yes. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, that's a great point. And, the stats have supported really since Marquette. I think, that the first 3 games, Illinois was shooting like 47% of their their shots from 3, and that's dipped down below 40. So they're taking less of them. I mean, you could just see tonight the pressure they were putting on the rim.
Yeah, Marquette, 33 3-point attempts. Valparaiso, 28, still high. They made 9 of them. Southern, 22. Western Illinois, 25, made 10 of those. Rutgers, 21, made 9 of those. Florida Atlantic, 20, made 8 of those.
Yeah. That's a good percentage, too. I mean, 40% tonight, and it seems like their high quality of looks, as Brad would say. I think that there's some selectiveness in terms of when they're taking them. They're working them off ball movement. I think the ball movement's been pretty darn good for the most part. I know things were a little rocky early offensively for both squads, but the ability to rely on going to the basket, this team again that allows them to impose their size, their athleticism on you, and don't fall in love with the 3 when you've got that ability. When you got Terrence Shannon and go downhill like that, or Marcus, they can play in the mid post. That's a great thing to have.
If there's one thing Derek Piper is great at, it's a vibe check. Finger asks, what are the vibes, Derek? I do want to say again, last year, we're both talking from Madison Square Garden. Vibes are great. Vibes are great. Then you lose a couple, and your point guard leaves the team, and there's weird press conferences after a win. The vibes were off, and you were ultimately right about that. What are the vibes right now, though, Derek?
The vibes are pretty good. The vibes are pretty good as of right now, and yeah, again, like we'll be able to in the moment what those are. I'm not guaranteeing that it's going to be fantastic the rest of the way. There won't be some bumps in the road at some point, but I did right. Going into the year, I said I buy this team. I believe in them more than maybe even their projection at the time, which was like not that it was low. It was a top 4-5 Big Ten team and one that was probably an 8 or 7 seed in the tournament, but because of their collective experience, because of Shannon back, we haven't obviously seen close to the best of Coleman Hawkins. I think that is something that can play as you go further, and we really haven't seen Draven, Gibbs, Lawhorn, or Amani kind of find their footing yet. So I think that as the season goes on, hopefully those guys, while they won't be relied upon, can kind of give you a little bit more in spurts to complement what the rest of this team can do. But I like that they can, again, hang their hat on defense. They've taken strides offensively. It had been ugly at times during the first 5 to 6 games, but they've made some progress. You can tell they've had a bunch of practices of late, and I like the vibe of this team right now, especially just the way that Shannon's carrying himself and a guy that I trust as that alpha dog.
Yeah, Finger just pointed out, everyone go VIP. The next day and a half, 60% off VIP membership if you'd like to sign up for that. So important time with transfer portal and now hoops taking off right now. Derek Seneca asks, what seemed to be up with Ty Rodgers offensively? The thing I liked about Ty, didn't force things offensively. He kind of knew it was happening, had a couple big assists, and obviously he gives you something defensively. But he was on the court for 15 minutes in that second half. So what'd you think?
Yeah, he's not doing too much. He did try to post up at one point, got called for a travel. But it's someone that, at this point, he's more of a connector offensively, a guy that, when the ball's in his hands, he's trying to find that next pass. There are obviously games where he's been kind of in that, if he's off the ball, offensive rebounding threat, a guy can, cut off the baseline and be someone that finishes around the basket. But it's been pretty clear that you're not going to see him in a whole lot of or even very many ball screens as the on-ball operator and a guy that's they're going to run their offense through. It's kind of more of a connector and a guy that off the ball is going to try to crash the offensive glass and do those kind of things. So I think you can still build more into his game as the season goes on. We're talking about a guy that just transitioned to point guard in the summer, and we're a month into the season. So I
think sophomore year DeMonte Williams, before he made all those threes, supersized. That's kind of what I think his role is, and I think he understands that. So he's a better rebounder probably. Mark asks, can we please talk about Danger? What is his role going to be on this team? Very difficult to watch him. I agree. I think he's had a rough year against these bigger opponents, but I think Coleman Hawkins is going to play 28 minutes ago. And I want him on the court if he can with his injury for 28 minutes game. I think Dane Danger is a changeup. If you need some offense, you can bring him in. He just can't turn it over. He can't dribble as much as he is. I think there should be one dribble minimum. If you want to dribble one, Dane, that's fine. But I don't like when he's putting the ball on the court, letting those guards dig on him, because that has to be the scouting report. He's a guy that I want in the low block, and then you make a move quickly or be patient and see what happens. But I'm probably more concerned about him defensively, because when he's off the court, it's just very noticeable defensively.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think that, it could be like a Georgie spotting Kofi situation where, he's going to have a night where you can tell he's feeling it. And if he's taking advantage of a matchup, which we know that if he's got a size advantage inside, that there are times when he simplifies and just goes to work, he can be a real value as an offensive punch inside. I do think, especially when you're going to play drop coverage, especially when you play a big man that can stretch you out. Like he's very limited in terms of how much area he can cover defensively, and I don't think he does maybe the best job in terms of positioning in that sense, especially when you compare it to Hawkins, like you're talking about. So there will be some nights where I think Dane is valuable in terms of what he can do with his back to the basket. But I also think just Coleman's style of playing 5 out opens the lane like you want for Terrence Shannon or Marcus on the mid post.
Can I bring up this comment, Phil? Coleman is a turnover machine. He had one tonight, I think. He has more negative plays than positive. If you don't see that, you're blinded. He plays dumb basketball. Coleman can be frustrating. We have acknowledged that. If you don't see the value he brings on Coleman on the court, you're not watching. Like you don't see what he's bringing on the court. Like Golden got the better of him. That's going to happen against Zach Edey and sometimes. But man, he had some huge moments, and just what he allows them to do, the space he creates, the switching he can do. And I would just go back, watch the game when Danger's on the court defensively versus Coleman. It's just so much different. Richard says 18 fouls, not good. 18 to 20 free throws, difference in the game. Are you okay with Hawk taking threes? Yes, in rhythm, threes, without hesitation, without the pump fakes, without the dribble over, like a little bit. In rhythm threes, I love Coleman Hawkins taking them. I think if he makes 1 of 3 out of those every game, that's a good thing for Illinois.
Yes, I agree with all that. It's when he overcomplicates it, where he hesitates. And there's times where he had early space and he wasn't shooting. I was like, oh man, if he's not going to take those shots, what's the value of having a stretch big man who's not going to create the decision for the opponent to go out there and guard him? So he's got to take those shots. I'm not saying he's got to put up 8 a game by any means, and there will be some decisions he'll make in terms of when his spots are, or when he's feeling on a certain night, and when if he's missed 3 in a row. Do you kind of not take that 4th one? But yes, in rhythm, again, confident, fluid 3. I think that's fine. That's a fine shot. I think Illinois needs him to take those shots to really maximize the gravity, so to speak, of their offense.
Yeah, thanks for the $15 super chat there, Richard. I just saw somebody, Brad, pointed out that the Illini had a 60-40-90 game. Pretty good offensively.
Wow.
Pretty good.
That's
not sustainable, but hey,
not what we would have maybe expected out of this team. We've said this team might have to win uglier than not in a lot of games, but tonight obviously an exception. And I think what they did at Rutgers was great offensively. 78 points and shot the 3 well and moved the ball. I think they've taken strides since the layoff, and see if it continues against one of the best defenses in the country in Tennessee as well. One that's going to be pretty hungry after dropping their last 3 high major contests.
Yeah. Brain says, any word on DGL, just not ready yet. Dre Gibbs Lawhorn played, let's see here, 2 minutes, had a turnover, and quickly got pulled off the court. He's a freshman. He's a freshman, and there's a team of veterans that is ready to win now. He got his moments against little major opponents, put up some points against some of those, Derek. But no, he's not ready yet for here, and that's okay. I know we all worry, could that lead to a transfer at the end of the year? I know everybody thinks about that, given the history of freshman guards who have shown some talent here. Just win, baby. Like, like isn't this year showing? Like, I can live in the portal if they have to do that, but if he's bought in to the long term and developing, like, he's gonna have to wait his turn. When you pick a program like Illinois, you're not going to get shots up. You pick a program like Louisville or Georgetown, Derek, you're going to get lots of shots.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's a good point too. Illinois doesn't need to force the issue with the freshman that's going to go through some growing pains. Justin Harmon's giving them good minutes.
Yeah.
So I think that obviously they're rolling with that in terms of, Harmon, I think we talked about his offense. Offensively, he's a guy that's been pretty consistent. I know he had foul issues tonight a little bit, but he's been pretty consistent defensively. And Dre just got a pure point guard. That was something that they were hoping he could maybe, and look, the season's not over by any means, grow into. I do think that based on the way things were trending out of November was that Nico Moretti, if one of those two is going to get opportunities on the ball, was going to be Moretti. And of course, would have to show it against higher level competition. But you're not in a position where you have to play freshman a lot early on. You usually roll with your vets, and he's still learning the game. Like, he's very talented. He's very talented, athletically, offensive skill-wise. But I think he's still just trying to learn the nuances of the game, have it slow down for him. And as long as he remains bought in, I still really love the potential that he has in terms of his future, maybe even later on this season, of what he can provide in some spurts off the bench, because I think he's a electricity type of player.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Lazy says Terrence has to be a first-team All-American at this point. Yeah, he's probably in that conversation, which is saying something. All right, Derek, before I let you go, and appreciate the time tonight. Tennessee, number 17. Who only wins that game, Derek? Like, it's already been a successful start to these 3-game stretch, winning 2 of them. I think you would have taken that before that, but time to get greedy for Illinois and go win another top 25 matchup, a definite quad 1 opportunity on the road against a team that has lost 3 straight entering tonight. They have George Mason, but all against top 10 ranked opponents right now. Tennessee can guard, but man, you win this one, Derek. Illinois might be a top 10 team next week.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about, and that can really do some things for your resume. I mean, you're going to still have opportunities in the Big Ten. We've talked about it, though. I think with Michigan State. By the way, are they going to beat Wisconsin or no? Are they going to lose?
Wisconsin won.
Wisconsin won. Okay,
that's good. Wisconsin's the top 4 team in the Big Ten.
Yeah. So
Tennessee beat George Mason, by the way, 87-66. That's a top 100 Ken Palm, George Mason. Okay.
So. Yeah, with Michigan State being down relative to expectation, Maryland looking pretty poor. I'm not, then it vaults up. Maybe Wisconsin's better than people think, whatnot. But the Big Ten maybe doesn't have in a normal year, maybe 3 years ago, all the quad 1 opportunities that you would have liked. So I think these early season ones are of that much more importance. And just, I mean, to play a Tennessee team in their building, I mean, Tennessee's, I think, the last handful of years have been at least like a top seed in the NCAA tournament, and it probably will be in a similar position this year, as long as they stay healthy. I know they take some losses recently. That can move you up a seed line or 2. I mean, that can really position yourself. We talk a lot about this team going where they haven't been forever in March. Big part of that is setting up the path beforehand. I mean, that's why it was so disappointing when you lost Loyola, because the path was lined up for you. Beating a team like Tennessee would really put that picture together through the first 2 months really, really well. The Marquette loss will not hurt you at all.
No.
And then having won the 3 marquee games, and then in December, if you do that, would be a big deal. And obviously Missouri is still one of those, at least in terms of the rivalry standpoint. So I expect Tennessee to be very, very hungry because of having lost to Purdue, Kansas, and UNC and all in consecutively, and to give up the type of points that they gave up to UNC, 61 in the first half. I think they're going to want to get back on the right track. Non-football Saturday in Knoxville, and I think it's going to be rowdy. But and I'm interested to see what Dalton Connect looks like, because he's one of the splash players in the portal.
Yeah, had an injury the other day. Did play tonight, 10 points. But boy, he's 37 in a loss to North Carolina, and I can't believe North Carolina scored 100 on Tennessee. Just a tough, physical, kind of Illinois-like team with a great guard, and Dalton Connect, who's kind of lifted them offensively. Transfer from Northern Colorado. Indiana wanted him real bad. He's everything Indiana needs right now, and they're able to close that one down. So I can't wait to see Dalton Connect against Terrence Shannon. That's potentially 2 of the top 10 players in the country going at each other.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Connect's not only just a shooter, but I mean, he's a good athlete. He can get downhill and score. And he was unbelievable in that UNC game, as they made a big comeback. Obviously fell short, but yeah, he's one of the top transfers out there. And Terrence, a guy that we've had very little expectation being a transfer that then would be at a destination for 2 seasons. Illinois is really living a good life with that one right now. So that should be a high level type of battle, and we'll show a lot about this team too. And you win that one, you're really building some good momentum and a nice early resume so far.
Well, Derek, get home, get to see the family for a little bit after a long trip on the East Coast, and then we got to head down to Tennessee, man. How was the East Coast?
It was good, man. It was good. The eats are good out here, man. The pastrami before the game was really good. It wasn't Katz's.
Did you get your Sbarro? Because Joey wanted some.
No Sbarro, but I did have I got a slice or two along the way. Not as much pizza this time as last time, but some chicken parm sandwich for lunch today was really good, and that's pretty much been the deal. Good eats and working and some sleep, catching up on some sleep as a dad. With another kid on the way here next month, I need that nap while I let Andy do all the touristy stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, getting that dad sleep in before the second one comes up is a really smart move. All right, Derek Piper, appreciate you, man. Great stuff from New York. Can't wait to see what you have tonight. My player grades, there might be an elusive 6-star involved there, maybe another half-star for another guy. We got all of that coming up at Illini Inquirer. If you're not a VIP member, you got another day to sign up, 60% off a VIP membership. All of these people are on the live YouTube. It's awesome. 750 people. If all of you guys could hit that like button, we'd really appreciate it. Subscribe to us, hit the notifications bell. That really helps us out. And if you're just listening on the podcast, appreciate you too. So give us a rating or review wherever you get your podcasts. But for Derek Piper, I'm Jeremy Werner. Check out all the content at IlliniInquirer.com. Everybody have a great night. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.